Hey guys, I'm so sorry that I completely forgot that I needed to make part 2 of this video. I would like to thank my student Deepak for actually reminding me that I needed to finish this. And so here is the rest of the unit in detail. Okay. Now, just like the other videos which I have done, I will discuss this topic in a very general note and not from the point of view of a commerce student. Okay, so let's get started with this. Now, in order to start a joint stock company, you need to go through different steps. Okay, so the first step that you go through is finding a promoter. Now, I know the textbook definition of a promoter, and I know the definition is incredibly stupid. Because if you read the definition, it says a promoter is a person who promotes a business. Now, what does that mean? What do you mean by promote a business? Do you mean you go about putting up posters, radio advertisements, television advertisements and promote a business? Not really. A promoter is a person who is required to make the business into what it can in the future. That is, make it into a grand success. Now, when I start a company, I may not necessarily have the skill sets or the monetary resources to go about doing what I want to do. And hence, I would go about looking out for a promoter for doing whatever I wanted. So basically here, a promoter is a person whom you would have a fiduciary relationship with. Now let me give you some more examples of what a fiduciary relationship is. Obviously, you're not very good at the human anatomy, so you would consult a doctor for any medical advice. You're not very good in understanding the legal system, so you would consult a lawyer for advice on the legal system. In both the cases, you have a fiduciary relationship. Okay? Now, in my case, let's assume I'm a person who is wanting to do education online, but I don't know how to go about putting up a website, how to go about designing it, what are the resources I need. None of that I have no knowledge about. So what would I do? I would go about searching for some person who can help me out in this particular avenue. I may already have the textbooks, I may already have the Word files, the PDF files that needed to be uploaded, but I don't know how to go about designing a website. That's when a promoter can help me out in this. Similarly, that's what companies do. It could be for the sake of, let's say, getting capital. It could be for technical reasons as in bringing in new technology. That's why you actually need a promoter. A promoter can be an individual or it can be a company as well. Okay. For example, stock exchanges, the promoter for many of the stock exchanges has been companies. Like you have Industrial Finance Corporation of India, you have ICICI Bank that has been the promoter for quite a few of the stock exchanges in the country. Even individuals can be promoters. Okay, the main promoter for Kingfisher Airlines has been Vijay Mallya. So there, an individual can be a promoter, or even a corporation as well can be a promoter for starting a business. Okay, now once you find a promoter, the next thing you need to do is take up the incorporation stage. The incorporation stage is the most important one because this is where you get recognized as a company. Okay, so what is the resources that you need here? Firstly, select a name. When you go about selecting a name, it should not be similar or identical to an existing one. Okay, remember, it should not be similar or identical to an existing one. Even if the spellings of the company is different, the phonetics, the pronunciation should not be the same. There are very, very strict regulations on what name you can actually go about choosing. In fact, recently, Government of India doesn't encourage the use of Indian or Hindustan in the name of a company. The reason being, usually words like Hindustan or Indian are in fact linked with government companies. So in fact, you could take advantage of a government company credibility and in turn use it for your advantage. So there not really allowed. The next thing that you need is to submit Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association. Okay, I'll tell you what Articles of Association is first before I move on to what Memorandum of Association is. Okay, now Articles of Association is a document for internal governance. Remember my word, internal governance. Articles of Association is a document which allows greater flexibility than what is there when it comes to Memorandum of Association. For example, one of the points that is there in the articles are the use of the common seal. Now, in the previous videos, I told you what a common seal is. And as per Companies Act, it says the use of the common seal is restricted to an officer of a company. Now, who can be this officer of a company? Okay. Now, let's say me and my friend were to start a company and I happen to be the officer in charge of the common seal. Now, if I were to leave the company, definitely someone else is required to replace me and use the common seal. In that case, in the articles, all that is needed to be done is vote out my name and add someone else as saying that this guy is now in charge of the common seal. Okay, so that's where the articles are a very, very flexible document. One more you could add in the articles are the qualification of directors. Now, qualification here doesn't mean your education. Okay, and not necessarily at least. Now, you could be the judge of what is meant by qualification here. You could say the director is someone who has to have completed his MBA from any of the Indian Institute of Management. You are allowed to do this. Or you can say the number of male directors and female directors should be in this ratio. You are allowed to do this. Okay. One more you could add, in fact, you could say the directors must have a professional qualification, as in they should have completed a CA course or a CA or CS course or an ICWA. This is how flexible you can be in the articles. Now, in the next slide, I would like to discuss memorandum in detail. Now, I've seen in quite a few textbooks, there are only 4 clauses or 5 clauses in the memorandum, but as per Companies Act, there are 6. So I will look at it from Companies Act itself, and I know the textbooks are wrong, and I will not discuss from the textbook point of view. Okay. So firstly, name clause. What is the name of the company you have given here? Okay. Now, if you look at Bombay Stock Exchange's history, initially the company was named as Bombay Stock Exchange of India Limited. Okay. Now, the name of the company is just BSE Limited. Bombay Stock Exchange Limited is now been changed to BSE Limited. In name clause, you are given the name as to what is your company going to be known legally. Okay. We all refer to as Airtel as just Airtel. We don't really use the full name of the company, Bharti Airtel Limited. No one mentions that. But let's say you were getting an offer letter from Airtel, you will notice that the offer letter actually has the full name of the company and not just saying Airtel is ready to hire you. Name clause is the actual and the legal name of the company. What you and I use for convenience and what the media uses for convenience should not be confused as to the legal name of the company. Okay. In fact, Reliance, the full name of the company is Reliance Industries Limited or RIL. Your company can be known with the full form, or it can be known with an abbreviation, or it can be referred to as both. The name clause gives you that flexibility. Okay. Situation clause refers to the registered office of the company. Now, registered office refers to the main office of the company. Why is it so important? If I want to have any contracts with the company, I cannot do so with the branch office. Okay, I will have to approach only the registered office if I want to set up any contracts. Okay, now let's say, for example, I am a person manufacturing paper. Okay, and I want to use this paper manufacturing by making deposit forms, demand draft forms, and submit it to ICICI Bank all over the country. Now the closest ICICI Bank branch from my place is the one in Banchankari 3rd State, just about 3 or 4 kilometers where I stay from. Okay, approaching a branch won't really make any sense. If I were to approach the branch manager there, he will tell me, okay, go approach the regional head. If I go approaching the regional head, he will direct me to the Mumbai registered office. So rather than me running around in circles, I can read the registered office address, which is in fact displayed in every branch of ICICI Bank, and directly approach the registered office without having to go from pillar to post in every branch. So that's one importance as to why you have the registered office, the main office of the company. One more reason why you have the registered office is for the sake of paying taxes. If, for example, McDonald's has got its registered office in Bangalore, it doesn't, it's actually there in Mumbai, they would have to be paying the state taxes of Karnataka. However, McDonald's has got its registered office in Mumbai, and therefore they need to pay the state taxes of Maharashtra. When you have a registered office in one particular state, it is almost impossible for you to change afterwards. Okay, that's one of the reasons why you have quite a few registered offices in Karnataka. In one of my videos, I mentioned how high the state taxes are in this particular state, and that's one of the reasons why very few companies choose to keep their registered office here. They know very well if they keep it here, they need to pay pretty high taxes, and they choose to keep it in states where the local taxes are fairly lower than compared to a place like Karnataka. Okay, so registered office here is one for the sake of taxes, and another one in case you want to get into contracts, you always approach the registered office for this. One more important rule about registered office is you're supposed to display the full address of your registered office in all the branches of the company. Like for example, Jubilant Food Works, the company that owns Domino's, every branch of Domino's, right at the entrance, you may have noticed the registered office detail is printed. In case you haven't, check again, it's actually there. The same applies for ICICI Bank as well. Okay, then objects clause. Objects clause refers to what is it the company wants to do. Okay, now when you go about mentioning the different objectives of a company, it's not necessary that you need to follow all of them. Okay, remember, it's not necessary that you need to follow all of them. If I were a company, okay, let's bring back to education again. If I go about starting a company saying that I'll be in the world of education and I will be delivering online content in the world of commerce and in the world of science. Right now, I might be doing only commerce related topics, but the government of India will not go about asking me, you mention commerce and science, how come we don't see you doing science? Maybe in the future, I might actually take up science and talk about science topics as well. But the reason they go about doing that where they mention everything is because afterwards, if you want to add something into your business, it's pretty painful to make changes in the memorandum. Most of the changes, if you want to make in the memorandum, you require a super majority of 75%. And in some cases, you require approval of the central government as well. To avoid all this circus, they go about mentioning practically everything. Sanjeevani syndrome, as I call it. Look it up. So they go about mentioning everything in order to avoid these things happening in the future. Okay. And then you have liability clause. Liability of a company might be limited to share capital or it might be limited to guarantee. Okay. Now, share capital is a fixed amount. Guarantee as well limits to the amount of money you agree to pay on liquidation. It's a fixed amount. Okay. Now, in share capital, there's a possibility that your shareholdings could get diluted. It could be reduced. But in guarantee, you agree to pay a particular amount irrespective of what is there in your share capital. Okay. Now, I know that's a little bit of a vague topic. I wish I could explain this in a little bit more detail, but unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have the time. Okay. Capital clause and subscription clause. Now, these two things have always been confused by students. So let me explain this in detail. Okay. Now, I've taken my friend here, Yashveer, Me and Yashvir have now decided to start a company, a private limited company, where we want to invest the minimum amount of capital of 1 lakh rupees. Now in capital clause, I would go about mentioning how much of capital I have contributed and how much of capital Yashvir has contributed. Okay. Now there I mentioned in the capital clause, Yashvir has contributed 75,000, while me, I have contributed around 25,000. I'm a bit of a cheapo, so you expect me to contribute less. In fact, you should be happy I'm contributing something at all. Okay. Now, how does this get added to subscription clause? The capital I've now invested could get converted to shares. Okay. Now I've taken a very, very low value here. Okay. So Yashvir has given me 75,000 and in return have converted the capital into equity shares, 7,500 shares of rupees 10 each. Okay. And me, in my case, 2,500 shares of rupees 10 each. How did I arrive at 10? Because when you go about setting the face value of a share, you can either set the face value as 1, 2, 5 or 10. Technically speaking, SEBI allows you to keep the face value as any whole number, but there is a reason you should avoid doing this. Okay, I'll tell you that in a more detailed video when I talk about stock exchanges. Okay, remember that, the face value and the stock exchanges concept. Okay, so this is a very, very simple way I've allotted shares. I've given him 7,500 shares of rupees 10 each and I've taken 2,500 shares of rupees 10 each. Okay, now I could be a little more creative here. In fact, I could go about giving Yashvir 750 preference shares of rupees 100 at 7%. Preference shares carry a fixed rate of return and they don't have any voting rights. Meaning, no matter how much of profit I make, Yashvir is able to get only 7 rupees for every share that he's got. Okay, and also I would do this because I don't want Yashvir to vote in the decisions which I take. Now when I go about putting across meetings, I am the only person here who can actually vote on these meetings. So I don't want Yashvir to go about interfering in this. It's not that I don't like him or something. He's a nice guy. But it's just that I don't want his views to contradict with mine. Many companies do this. When a person has contributed capital, they in turn go about giving preference shares because they don't want this guy to participate in decision making. Or one more way I could go about doing this is, Yashvir is a good friend of mine, so let me not piss him off. I could do something like this as well. I could give him 250 preference shares of rupees 100 at 7% and 7,000 shares of rupees 10 each. And me on the other hand, I prefer to keep the existing. I am always pro equity. Okay, so that's something I could do as well. In subscription clause, you mention how many shares each person has got. Okay, and depending upon the number of shares the person has got, that's the amount of control they have in the company. Okay, more number of shares you have, the greater the control. Okay, then capital subscription stage. In capital subscription stage, you talk about how do you go about raising public. Now, in order to raise money from the public, you have a document known as the prospectus or known as the red herring prospectus. Now I'll tell you more details of what the prospectus is in another video. It's a very, very interesting history. Okay, a prospectus is a document which is used to invite the public. Remember these words, invite the public for putting money into the company. In an invitation, you don't force people. I know the Indian version of invitation is more or less forcing people to come to a wedding or a birthday party. But when it comes to a prospectus, you really can't force people and tell them that, look, I really want your money and you better invest in my company. You only invite a person, you only disclose the details. In a prospectus, a company would mention who they are, why they need the money, and how they go about utilizing this money. And more importantly, if a company says that they want, say, 100 crores for doing business, they need to give complete breakup of information as to how did they arrive at 100 crores. SEBI is going to ask them a lot of questions and they need to be very, very accurate in the information that they convey. Okay, Like I said, I'll give you more details of the prospectus in another video. For now, this should be good enough for you. And finally, after you raise capital, you have business commencement. That is, one document you need here is the certificate of incorporation. Certificate of incorporation is mandatory for both private limited companies and public limited companies. However, business commencement certificate is mandatory only for a public limited company and not a private limited company. Remember, in the first case, private and public mandatory. In the second case, only a public limited company, it's mandatory. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any queries, do leave them in the comment section below. And as always, please subscribe. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.